You got caught by the mom and you went around it? You said, nah, I'm gonna still talk to you. Pregnant teacher faces new twist amid sex allegations. Nicole Callaham is her actual name. And this was an interesting case. I haven't really been following this one too long. Let's get into it, man. Pregnant teacher faces new allegations.
Development for a South Carolina teacher accused of sexually abusing a teenager. And this could upend the case. We're breaking down the allegations against Nicole Callaham, the criminal charges she faces, and what this latest twist means with a unique insight from a South Carolina criminal defense attorney. The South Carolina State Board of Education has officially suspended the teaching license of former Anderson County teacher Nicole Callaham. This comes after claims she sexually abused a teenage boy. Officials say the move is necessary because of the, quote, serious nature of the allegations and the potential threat to the health, safety, and welfare of students. Authorities say Callaham, who was a kindergarten teacher and local musical theater director, allegedly exploited her position of trust to engage in inappropriate behavior with a young student over several years. We're going to get into what this latest development means, but first, if you're not familiar with this disturbing case, let me walk you through it.
I don't know what it is with these like mid-tier millennial teachers sleeping with these like young boys. It's like it's their new fantasy for some reason. Like I don't know what's going on, man. Like it used to be the joke that like when I was a kid that young boys would we would joke about this kind of stuff, but it's like it's happening now. It's like actually happening now, and it's like weird. It's like they're living out the fantasy now. It's so strange to me.
From the beginning. This is one of those rare cases where you'll get to hear directly from the alleged victim himself, a teen who made the decision to come forward once he turned 18 years old. He told the court and later the public that he refuses to stay silent and wants people to understand what he says really happened to him. We'll get into his words in just a bit, but let's talk about Nicole, a 33-year-old who was living in Anderson, South Carolina. She was married, had a young daughter, and was known in her community as both a teacher and a musical theater director. From the outside looking in, she was a trusted role model for kids. She even had lighthearted videos of herself online, dancing in a classroom talent show, and smiling with students. In 2021, she directed Legally Blonde Jr. the musical at a local children's playhouse. The group marketed itself as a safe creative space where kids could build up confidence. And that's where police say she met a boy who was just 14 years old at the time. His family signed him up for auditions, and Callaham gave him a part in the show. Flyers for that production are still on the Playhouse's Facebook page, and parents back then were publicly praising Callaham, calling her an inspiration. It seemed like a pretty wholesome theater project, but according to investigators, this is when the grooming began. According to a police report, Anderson County deputies say Callaham started offering to drive the boy to and from rehearsals, something that seemed like a helpful gesture to his busy mom who had other children to care for. Callaham also had a daughter of her own, which made it seem like she was even more trustworthy. Now, over time, police say that she started opening up to the boy's family. She confided in them about her marriage problems and said that she had a strained relationship with both her mom and her sister. The victim's mother later told the court that she thought Callaham needed support and she was willing to be there for her. But behind the scenes, authorities allege that Callaham blurred those boundaries. According to court documents, she slowly built private trust with the boy and then began to sexually abuse him. His mother eventually discovered what was allegedly happening and confronted Callaham, telling her to stay away from her son. But prosecutors say Callaham didn't stop there. Instead, she found new ways to keep contact, changing her social media handles to avoid being blocked and even buying an Xbox so she could continue talking to the teen while he was playing video games. Another disturbing allegation, the victim's mother later told the court that Callaham's own young daughter was.
You got caught by the mom and you went around it? You said, nah, I'm gonna still talk to you. It's like this is a weird, strange obsession that some of these ladies have, but this one is even more insane than any of the other ones I've ever seen before. Like you got basically caught, blocked, and then you were like, fuck it. You didn't care about your life. You really were trying to throw it all away.
Sometimes present during these encounters. By the time police got involved, investigators were building multiple cases against her, and she's now facing a whole slew of charges across county lines. The Anderson County Sheriff's Office said its investigation began in May of 2025. Detectives uncovered evidence that the misconduct had started years earlier, in 2021. On July 10th, the sheriff's office posted about their investigation into Callaham, writing, quote, Callaham, an Anderson County school teacher at the time, engaged in grooming behavior toward the boy during his early teenage years. The relationship intensified as she reportedly signed the student out of school, transported him to practices, and served as a supervisor for after school activities. These repeated interactions led to a prolonged pattern of abuse, which was corroborated by search warrants and ongoing cooperation with the victim's family. According to investigators, the victim made the decision to come forward after turning 18, following time spent processing the experience and trauma associated with the abuse. Based on their findings, the Anderson County Prosecutor's Office charged Callaham with 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor in the second degree and 1 count of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Now, under South Carolina law, a person is guilty of criminal sexual conduct with a minor in the second degree if the actor engages in sexual battery with the victim who is at least 14 years of age, but who is less than 16 years of age, and the actor is in a position of familial, custodial, or official authority to coerce the victim to submit or is older than the victim. The punishment for that in South Carolina is up to 20 years in prison. Contributing to the delinquency of a minor, meaning pushing or influencing a child to break rules, is punishable by a fine of up to $3,000, up to 3 years of prison time, or both. Hey, by the way, there's a reason Sidebar is one of the most popular shows on YouTube right now, and just no big deal, but Joe Rogan, we're coming for you. Just like there's a reason Morgan and Morgan is America's they win a house insurance company's million their client in Pennsylvania. Morgan and Morgan made their injured in the link case. Investigators found out that Anderson County, but got to point out that Anderson County isn't the only jurisdiction involved here. While pursuing their case, investigators determined that some of the alleged activity occurred in Greenville. A July 10th Facebook post from the Greenville Police Department reads, quote, during the Anderson County Sheriff's Office investigation, it was determined that some of the alleged criminal activity had occurred within the jurisdiction of the city of Greenville. The investigation revealed that Callaham engaged in an inappropriate and unlawful relationship with a 14-year-old male. Based on evidence collected, Greenville detectives obtained arrest warrants for multiple offenses committed within our jurisdiction. And Greenville County prosecutors charged Callaham with 8 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor in the second degree and 4 counts of unlawful conduct toward a child. South Carolina law defines unlawful conduct toward a child as placing the child at an unreasonable risk of harm, causing harm to the child, or abandoning the child. It's punishable by up to 10 years in prison. In May, Callaham resigned from her teaching job. She was arrested after surrendering to authorities on July 10th. She appeared for a hearing in Anderson County where she was released on bond, and following that hearing, the alleged victim in this case, now 18 years old, actually spoke out publicly to the media. His name is Grant Strickland, and here's what he told reporters.
Though it's a traumatic event, I'm here to fight, and I'm not going to back down. And that I think more awareness needs to be brought to things like this, and just because I'm a man doesn't mean that it should be shunned away. Because I was a child, I wasn't a man, I was a boy.
Callaham then appeared in court on July 14th.
She was smiling and shit too. What the hell was going on when she walked into that courtroom? She messed up though. These young generation, these new young men, they really in touch with their feelings and they understand like trauma and trauma bonding, and these ain't the ones, bro. If you would have 10 years ago, I take that back. 15 years ago, young men back then, they probably wouldn't have said nothing. Like if it was a 14-year-old when I was 14, I can almost guarantee that 14-year-old would have went to his grave with that, or at least he might have bragged to his friends though. That might have been what got you caught. But I guarantee not no 14-year-olds when I was 14, they would have never said nothing. I'm gonna be honest. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I'm just being honest. They wouldn't have said it. Nowadays it's different. These kids they understand like, oh, hold on, that's not cool. They didn't been, they didn't been to therapy, half of them, so they know.
In Greenville County, she dropped a huge bombshell. During the hearing, which you can see there from the court footage per WYFF, she was actually smiling. Then came the big reveal. Her defense attorney told the judge she was 8 to 9 weeks pregnant. He had emphasized that she had pleaded not guilty and would need a surety bond to receive prenatal care while awaiting trial. The court ultimately set bail at $120,000, broken down into $10,000 for each individual charge. I'm joined now by a very special guest to help break all of this down, and that's criminal defense attorney Chris Adams. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. This is a really, truly shocking story. And what's your reaction to that?
Well, it's alarming for parents who would have schools or students in those districts. We seem to be seeing a lot of these stories nationwide. It seems to be increasing, at least this unscientific view is it seems to be increasing around the country, and it's always scandalous.
And why do you think we're seeing such an increase of these types of cases? Do you think it's because a lot more people feel comfortable reporting this? A lot more people, in terms of teachers and other reporting figures, are feeling more comfortable reporting this? Why does it feel like we're always seeing these types of cases in what feels like a weekly basis?
My guess is it's all about reporting. My guess is this has
That's what I think.
gone on forever, and at least when I was a kid, nobody
When he was a kid, they was definitely not going to tell. Definitely not.
would have viewed a male high school student as a victim.
Mhm.
They would have said he was lucky, and
Right.
now people are prosecuted when things come to light.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because sometimes I see, under our YouTube comments, some people will still say things along those lines of, oh, I wish I had teachers like that. And it's just so inappropriate and disturbing. And it's kind of that stigma that we still see even to this day. And do you think that Nicole Callaham is even taking her case kind of seriously at all? I mean, when she appeared in court last time, she was smiling. She seemed pretty jovial given the allegations that she's facing.
I don't have any reason to think she is not taking the charges seriously. It's the demeanor of someone appearing in court is you can see from the outside, and it's almost there's no proper way for someone to react. If they look like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, or if they're in tears, supporters of the victims' rights communities will say that's convenient. They're playing a role for bond. If people look more laid back or trying to maybe put a stronger appearance forward, an appearance of confidence, then they're oftentimes viewed and criticized for being nonchalant or not taking the charges seriously. So it's really hard for any of us to know. She is facing considerable exposure in two different judicial circuits in South Carolina. Is losing her employment. I don't have any reason to think anyone in that situation is going to take this seriously.
And are you surprised that she lost her teaching license at all, especially given that she hasn't been convicted yet? Or if she is to be convicted, are you surprised that she already lost that license?
No, I'm not. She is, first of all, the most important part is she's presumed innocent charges that she and everyone is entitled to. Um, when you have licensing boards of professionals, every state operates a little bit differently. Some states will suspend, some states will keep people on the job, others will suspend with pay, others will yank licenses and suspend without pay. South Carolina is apparently a suspend without pay state under whatever collective bargaining agreement the teachers have. And I don't think too many people are going to be upset about that.
And in South Carolina, I'm curious to know your thoughts on the charges specifically, like why criminal sexual conduct with a minor in the second degree as opposed to rape or statutory rape?
Well, that is basically statutory rape.
Mm.
Under the South Carolina Code, our scheme has three different levels of criminal sexual conduct based on what body parts were involved. That goes back to common law origins. So that is essentially statutory rape.
And in terms of just Callahan and the treatment that she's been receiving, her case has been kind of making a lot of headlines. But does any part of you think that she's being treated differently in terms of the criminal process, especially since she's out of jail right now?
I don't think so. First, she's presumed innocent. Second, I believe she's 33 or 34 years old with no prior record, to my knowledge. She's been a contributing member of society, doing a lot of good for a lot of students, separate from this one allegation. And this one allegation, which is in two different judicial circuits, so she'll have to deal with bond in both places. But these allegations are of a consensual nature. The law says that someone underage cannot consent, but that's different than the use of force to accomplish a goal. So you have an underage person who participated. There's criminal exposure for Ms. Callaham if she ultimately is convicted of the charges. But I think at this point it is appropriate for her to be out on bond so she can review.
That is a very, very important point in this case. And I think that if she plays her cards right, she's probably gonna not do a ton of jail time. Honestly, I wonder what her defense is gonna be. Because if she's gonna say not guilty, didn't do it or whatever, or if it's gonna be more like, yeah, I did do it, but he consent. I don't know. Obviously, he can't consent. I guess that would be admitting guilt because he can't consent. He was underage. I don't know how do you defend these? Maybe you say you didn't do anything at all because I don't know how strong the evidence actually is, but I mean, it's not like they actually got caught in the act or anything like that. So it's not as bad as like the Christina Formella ones where she like genuinely got caught with, text messages and, in her notes in her phone about how she loved him. Like the evidence doesn't seem as strong in this one as I have seen in some of the other cases. So I'm curious what her defense is going to be.
Do the discovery, work with her lawyers, do if treatment is appropriate for her, and it may very well be, go to treatment and do other things that can help her put her life and her case in a better position.
And in South Carolina, we've seen in other cases where it's pretty common maybe that a defendant faces charges in maybe multiple states, multiple counties. But in this particular case, we kind of have that same scenario with Nicole Callaham facing charges in multiple counties or jurisdictions. Talk to me a little bit about how that works. Do you see that pretty often in South Carolina?
I think you see that pretty often everywhere. I have a number of cases now where people are charged at one of the counties in the state, and then they have similar charges in another state. So you have to deal with who is going to take priority in the case. You have to deal with bond in both places, merging the bond conditions, and try to make it so that everyone is somewhat satisfied with how the case is going to ramble forward. In this circumstance, it's I think Anderson County and Greenville County. They're neighboring judicial circuits. I would think that those two judicial circuits, the prosecutors would have a lot of interaction with each other, and they should be able to figure out which case will proceed first. If a guilty plea were to be arranged, likely those would all be dealt with in one hearing. So whichever county, let's assume Greenville County takes a lead, Anderson County would be part of the conversation about a plea offers. And if that's accepted, then they would send their paperwork to Greenville, and it could all happen in Greenville or vice versa.
And how difficult does that make it for a criminal defense attorney in order to defend their client if they're seeing it in multiple jurisdictions?
Well, it does complicate matters, but here this is the same employment, same alleged victim, same client. So it's a matter of geography.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the defense lawyer doesn't get to choose which district they would go first in. They might like working with one prosecutor better than the other prosecutor, and you don't get to make the choice. So you're playing the hand that's dealt to you on that circumstance. But if you're talking about going to trial, if you're rejecting the plea offer and wanting to have your innocence evaluated by a jury, it's very challenging because you may have to deal with other bad acts evidence from the other district coming into your case. And then if you win the trial, you have to go try it in the other county too. So it really
seems so silly. It seems like a silly formality. Like it happened in two different jurisdictions. So I got to go over here and go to court and then go to here and go to court as well. One court finds me guilty. The other one finds me not guilty. What if that's the case? I mean, I don't know. It kind of seems like a silly formality. Like why don't we just merge these and put them all in one, like underneath one case, one jurisdiction? I don't know. It seems silly to me.
I think most people would think that would trigger some sort of double jeopardy issue. The courts do not view it that way. That's one of the things where the law and sort of public understanding don't mesh.
Right, exactly. And I think what also makes this case a little bit unique is that we're seeing the victim really kind of speaking out, especially to the media, coming forward and talking about this case, something that we don't see very often in other cases. What are your thoughts about the victim speaking out now that the victim is 18 years old?
We live in a world where people are speaking out on multiple social media platforms all the time. If he were my son, I would encourage him not to speak out, to keep as low a profile as possible under the circumstance, but that's a personal decision. And oftentimes people want to speak out either for in situations like this, sometimes in defense of the person who's charged, and sometimes to in support of the prosecution.
I can't remember if he said he was a defense attorney or not, but he definitely sounds like a defense attorney. And in some ways, like I feel like he's already making somewhat of a like decently compelling case for her. Like maybe not a case for her, but he's at least like offering her some off ramp of like things that she can do and why this case isn't maybe as bad as we think it is on the surface. Like I don't know. It's kind of interesting just the way he's talking about it. It's not like he's not overtly saying that it's not that bad, but I feel like there's a tone of what he's saying that's like, I mean, it's consensual, even though a kid can't consent. And yeah, it's interesting how he's kind of approaching it.
It could very much harm the defense. It could inflame the passions of potential jurors and make it difficult for somebody to get a fair trial.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest concern for me if I were defending Miss Callaham.
Question to you, Chris, is do you see this case actually going to trial? We've seen multiple times where cases go on and on and on, then jury selection begins, and all of a sudden there's a plea deal. Do you think you can see that possibly happening in this case, or do you see a strong possibility it will actually go through a trial?
Well, so in the vast majority of cases are resolved either by dismissals or pleas. And that's criticized by a lot of people. But there's a reason for it. And in South Carolina, we're an underfunded state. We have too few judges and a lot of courtrooms. So the only way to deal with the dockets are for most of the cases to be resolved by plea bargaining. That said, in this circumstance, without ever having spoken to Ms. Callaham or her counsel, if she's making public statements about being pregnant with the young man's child, then it seems like this would be headed for some sort of plea. I don't know how you go to trial in a statutory rape case, a criminal sexual conduct case with somebody underage, if you're carrying DNA evidence that would establish your guilt, the case. So it sounds like it would be a matter of sentencing, that this would be a sentencing case, and that's why being out on bond and getting whatever treatment and intervention is appropriate could be very helpful for her.
And I guess we'll see how this all continues to unfold. Chris, I want to thank you so much for your time and your insight into this case. Before we sign you off, though, is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I wasn't sure the way they're presenting it didn't seem like it was his kid for at first. Now the timeline is crazy. Like she's only a few months pregnant and he's 18 now. It's like it seems like what is going on? It seems like they were having sex just a few months ago. Like that's kind of crazy to me that like now you're going to trial. I mean, you're going to like, it almost feels like you got into an argument with her and you were upset. Like, I don't know. Like I feel differently about a 14-year-old kid versus a 17-year-old kid. And I'm like, you were 17 still having sex with this lady. And then like now you're upset and you're going to trial over it. And you just were having sex just a few months ago. Like, I don't know. That seems so like, that makes me feel just icky about the whole situation. Like, I don't know. Like, it almost feels like you got into a fight and got upset at her, and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna tell the courts that what you were sleeping with me when I was a kid. It's like, dang, bro, like y'all been together for a minute now. If this is the case, if you were 14 when you met her and she started doing this when you were 14, I get that you could have been groomed into this and maybe you weren't necessarily in your right headspace, obviously, but that just seems so weird that like you just got this lady pregnant a few months ago. I don't know. And if it's his kid, I'm assuming it's his kid. I don't know for a fact. That's all we got on this video. If you guys are new here, You guys know we do what we do. If you don't know what we do, this is what we do. Following a lot of these cases, I'm gonna be following along with this one. This is an interesting one to me. I want to see the conclusion of it. I'm curious what comes up soon.